cooler.
We able to do it without dragging it out. Just raise it.
This is a copy of what I sent out in the
I've got a copy of it.
email chain. I don't know. I don't know if
I
everybody-
printed it out. I figured we probably need it.
I had the option to print it out.
Oh, I got you. Thank you though. Sheriff, how are you? Good. According to his email, I don't think so.
How are you today, Bill?
I went
I screwed it up together.
well, I went to help him and he sat there and built every one of them. I just sitting there, Randy was running around. I helped y'all. I stayed out of that.
I've done them a bunch.
That picture was sent.
He's not here, I sent it.
Yeah, when you zoom in on it, you see it's on the water that much, which is how they like it. I think we're trying to keep several of them Saturday.
When it gets low, the sun starts stacking.
Yeah, they do, and then weighs them down too.
Weights them down and they turn the seem to bring a lot of luck up.
Yeah. Biggest problem with this is leaving in winter time, that ice is over, summer,
Joe, how you doing?
Good. When did they stop?
they'll use them for about 2.5 months.
Probably about July, August.
Oh, yeah, easy. Matter of fact, we ought to take them out when they're molting. There's a bit of geese out there around there. Pull them out, yeah, hopefully get fish up there, man. You know, all that stuff.
They'd probably say, yeah, but you got paid.
I've had a man.
If he shows up, I'll move.
Like it's good.
13 months.
I think so, yeah. You usually have to out 13 back around.
Going, Sheriff? Got the body cams installed? So I guess when it
You had your shot yet?
triggers
Yeah, I got
triggers
it
with
last
the
Friday. That's my first one.
gunshot
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
did
like
you
that,
get-
it must be a certain decibel or
Signed
something.
up over there,
that
but I
starts
never
to-
got a call or
How
email.
does it
I'm
do
like
with the
technically
lights?
a UK employee.
How does it do
because
it
I
with
work
the
for
lights
UK
when you
out
trigger
of
the
football
lights?
games.
Oh, okay.
And so
That's
like,
good.
I'm technically a UK employee, and so I guess that made me a little bit higher on the list.
Well,
I felt a little odd there because there was a lot of older people in the
I'm getting them mine tomorrow in Moorhead, St. Clair Hospital. Scheduled.
There's a lot of people that say that they've had, they've been able to get in at the.
Eric Travis
at
knew there.
the
He said a
horse
little,
park a
said
lot
a
easier
plug
than
plugs
UK.
into the.
Well, you know, I tried online. Well, it's been maybe a
Lights
week or
and triggers.
longer. I tried online there, and I couldn't. Can you call? I wonder, or
I'm not for sure. I think it was just you just got to be persistent. Is kind of what I was getting from what people were saying.
well, I signed up.
Yeah.
I signed up at online at UK and Moorhead, and then our surveyor had told me he already got his first shot in Ashland. And he said, talking about Moorhead there at St. Clair, he said, call him. And I said, well, so that night I was sitting there at home, and he texted me the number, and I called him the next morning and got an appointment for 1 o'clock afternoon, or this afternoon tomorrow. That was a week ago tomorrow that I called.
We've got my grandfather, who's like 78, on the list here, and he's not been called yet. So we put him on we put him on the one for UK, and like we still not heard back.
Get on to
Well, we need to do something.
If you'd be willing to get him to Moorhead, or
Yeah.
you're willing to go to Moorhead, call up there. And
Yeah.
now it was a little easier because I registered online. Further than the website's easy,
Yeah.
and then get
Judge, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Judge.
Good morning.
We need to do something because he's not getting called here. So. I mean, and I understand because I mean we're not getting this much of supply as a lot of other places.
The other thing I heard is that a lot of the mom and pop independent pharmacies are getting their vaccines from the feds, directly from the
Janice's
feds.
parents, they got it at the Walgreens in Hamburg.
I've heard of other people that got
That's where,
that went to
that's where
Walgreens
Janice's
for
parents
it.
had gone. Because they weren't even close and being called here. So they went somewhere else.
Where they sell them?
You know, they're distributing that Johnson & Johnson one shot. I'm still glad I'm getting the one I'm getting because that one only got about 65%
Yeah.
efficacy, I think.
Yeah. They give me the Pfizer at the UK.
I think Moorhead's doing, they said, they told me they're doing the Moderna. So,
Morning.
morning, how are you?
I'm fine.
That paper is just, the one that I sent in an email. I didn't know if everybody had a chance to print it out or not. So I made sure that everybody had copies.
Thank you. Where it goes.
Huh? I was gonna say, you got seniority. If you want this spot, you're welcome to it. I just thought I'd. Notoriety, yeah.
They gotta find me down here.
Judge may give the county attorney an extra minute or so before we.
That's what I'm doing.
Well, it's
You
9:29.
didn't need to give a written.
I'm right here.
Neil?
My access he's still working on that right now.
Eric, have you started that already?
Problem right there, so
So just take that off the agenda?
Well,
not-
no,
I
it
can't
has to be
find
done
it.
before, I don't guess it has to go on there. I mean, 15th is my deadline.
We'll just,
Yeah, I mean,
we'll mention it.
I may give it to you all day.
Okay,
You know, I mean, the 15th is my deadline,
all right.
but I just don't have the number to tell you.
I'd like to join me in a prayer. This is from Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake and the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with tumult. God is in the midst. We shall not be moved. God will help it when the morning dawns. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Amen. Now the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for the roll.
Masters Graham. Thompson. Constantopoulos.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
Elkins.
Present.
And Blanton is out.
Item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that, and I do have one amendment once we get a second.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Offer your amendment.
Judge, if I would like to add in between 6 and 7 there, discussion regarding flood victim relief in the form of waste disposal in the amount of about $75,000. And I was going to originally put that in, bring that up in magistrate comments, but with some other proposals on the agenda, I thought it would be advantageous for us to discuss that. And I can kind of tell you my idea and plans and what I've discussed with the road supervisor.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment. Michelle, if we could note it for the record as item 6A, flood victim relief discussion.
Judge, I would ask that include as well, if you feel it necessary, somewhere either
If you think it needs to be on the agenda, not magistrate comments, I can do that.
Have it either place you prefer, just need to have.
Do you guys want to get out of here early? Want me to put it earlier on the agenda, or does it matter?
He pays me by the hour, I'm good.
Okay.
This is a lot more climate control than the jail.
Gotcha. Let's put it in between 8 and 9. We'll put it as item 8A, discussion of jail transfer.
Thank you, Judge.
Any further changes to be requested? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of the agenda as amended, respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 6, consider approval of the minutes from the February 25th, 2021 fiscal court meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Judge, since Robert isn't here, I'll take it away.
Okay.
The first line, I think February 10th, needs to be changed to maybe the 25th or something.
Michelle, do you see that?
Yes.
We will accept that change.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Now, item number 6A, flood victim relief. Magistrate Constantopoulos, you have something to offer? I know your district has been heavily affected by the flooding.
Yeah, and Judge, I appreciate you. I know you've been down there, and I know I've been talking with Road Supervisor Alan Curtis in regards to the amount of damage and the amount of waste disposal that is going to be required for the victims down there. They've moved all their personal items and everything that's a complete lost close to the roads, and is going to have to be removed. And speaking with Road Supervisor Curtis, he's indicated that, the amount of loads that's going to have to be hauled out of there, and that's going to require a lot of fuel. I think he's going to have about 6 or 7 trucks. I think they did one test run, or a couple test runs, if I'm not mistaken. He may be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. But we need to allocate some money for that, so, we can get that waste disposal out of there. And, I'd like to offer up a motion that we allocate at least $75,000. Now, from my understanding, with the road supervisors, is that we would be able to, if we keep our expenses, hopefully get reimbursed something, maybe 80% from FEMA for this disaster. But I just want to make sure that we take care of the residents down there and help them as much as we can.
Is there a suggestion of a line item that we could take it from, or would this be something we would address with the line items later?
I just want to go ahead and authorize it for the expense, and then at the next meeting, I can work with Alicia, and
Okay.
we'll have to find it from a line item to be able to do that.
Sure. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion of $75,000 for flood relief? I will say that I've been down there, spoken with some of the residents. I spoke in our DES meeting earlier this week. These aren't folks that I would classify as well-to-do or wealthy. I mean, they're struggling, and it's appropriate that we help them as much as we can. I know that Chief Asbury has been working down there with Supervisor Curtis, and they've been doing a great job. Can't say enough about how much these folks have done over the past month, and just really helping our people get through these tough times. It's been an amazing past month, so I'm in favor of this as well. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item number 7, public comment sheet. Okay. Item number 8, review of the treasurer's report. Do we have any questions for Michelle? Michelle. Alicia or Michelle?
You're here today.
Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to item 8A, jail discussion in regards to potential transfers.
Judge, I'll begin that if you don't mind.
Sure.
There's a need to amend the jail budget, and Alicia and I talked about this, it's not really an amendment of the budget, it's a series of transfers which would increase the appropriations of the jail. And in so doing, we're gonna have to decrease the appropriations in the general fund. And the jail has prepared a list of line items that they feel like need to be populated. I think that was circulated to the magistrates at some point yesterday evening. Is that correct, Alicia?
Yes.
And so I think the amount of that is gonna be about maybe $602,000 that they have requested that we increase those appropriations by. Alicia and I looked at that yesterday, talked about what to do with that. It's easy to see where the transfers need to go. They pointed that out to us, but the issue is, where do we take those appropriations from in the general fund? There are some line items that were suggested, none of them are enough to cover the amount needed. So it's gonna require decreasing a series or several of those line items. And I felt like it was good to include the full court on that discussion of where those may come from. Alicia probably looked at that and had some thoughts. I would be glad to allow her to start that discussion, but I just felt that it was probably enough of a change that we probably should include the full court on it, not just Alicia and myself.
Okay, well, one potential area that I've thought of myself is the, in the reserves accounts in general, we have the US 60 line item. We also have the capital outlay rainy day. We have the other rainy day fund. Those three add up to a significant amount, but Alicia, if you have further thoughts? Okay.
Those were kind of the items that I discussed as well. That's the best option that I can come up with.
How much are in those rainy day line items, Judge?
If you take all three of those together, we're probably looking 700,000 plus.
We would deplete most of that, then at least a little more than 600,000 of it. And again, Alicia's gonna have to do a lot of work to prepare this transfer order that's coming up. She has a transfer order prepared for today to get us through the next 2 weeks, but it will be necessary to do something at the next meeting to get them, to get their bills paid between those two, the next meeting and the one following. So, our thought was, rather than address this, and we could do it either way the court desires, we could address it at every meeting between now and the end of the year, and do a little bit at a time, where we can populate these line items with what the jail feels like will be required to get them through the remainder of the year. For
Sure.
me, it's probably more palatable to go ahead and do the entire amount rather than do it monthly. But it's going to be a big pill to swallow, and I don't want to have Alicia go through all this work. It's going to be required to do it, and then I know we're still going to have to vote on it, but I don't want her to waste her time doing it. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
That's the reason I want to have the discussion. And if the magistrates have had a chance to review it and have no questions, I'm ready to move on. But if they have any, I'm ready to answer. As best I can, as is jail staff.
I've got one question for Alicia. If we do the transfer as it's been presented here by the jail, we're gonna have roughly about $600,000 in additional in cash transfer. Is that,
That isn't a cash transfer, it's a budget transfer. I just wanna make sure that we're clarifying the difference. Because we would just be moving the appropriations that are in whichever fund And then we would still do cash transfers like as needed.
So the whole 600,000 would not be at once?
It would be in the budget, but it would not be in cash, no.
We've already done transfers earlier in the year that weren't necessarily budgeted for the jail. So the best way I can think of it, and you know this budget stuff gets a little confusing and a little hairy with the way we have to keep a budget on paper and then we actually have cash accounts. We've already given some cash, and it's been budgeted for, but we have to move over enough in the budget to cover 600,000. We've already given some of the cash. So how much do you think we would actually, if we needed to transfer the full amount, how much do you think we would transfer in cash?
I am assuming maybe about 400,000. It could be a little less, but we're averaging about 100,000 a month.
Okay.
And as we become less impacted by the changes that came about due to COVID, I think the jail may be able to increase their revenues over the next 4 months as well. We've already seen them begin to tick up a little bit, although we've seen the county inmates tick up as well, which makes the expenses go up. But that's something that be sure we're gonna have to look at over the next 4 months and then the next 12 months following that, next year's budget, what revenues are gonna do, because hopefully they're gonna increase. But I think you and I had a discussion yesterday about fixed costs at the jail, and only a few inmates doesn't even cover the fixed costs, so it makes it more expensive just to keep them. You have to keep as many as you can, revenue generating inmates. So, governors made that tough on them. No doubt about it.
And we hope we use as little of that money as we can, but it's really difficult to predict where we're gonna land in the end.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's actually a
We're not
very
sitting
good.
here saying we're gonna use up another 400,000, it's just that's basically worst case scenario, would you agree, Ernie?
That's the projection of where we're gonna actually.
Hopefully we can carry over 100,000 in the next year's budget of those, but,
Maybe we get lucky, maybe we get it on the mail. That's where we think it's gonna be.
Well, I feel a little bit better now. I thought of course, we just got this yesterday. My interpretation is that we were going to have to transfer the whole $600,000 in cash at once, and that was my concern. So that makes me feel better now that y'all clarified that. So we may not even need 400 of it if things change here in the next 4 or 5 months, but we may need it all. Just all
100 is a
depends.
pretty good guess, but a year up, we may not need it all.
Taylor Doyle?
I just want to ask to that, Mr. Gross, as y'all know, we had, I think it was Monday, I just shared with Master Thompson, Master Evans, who's been very kind to meet with us, and listen and understand, and offer suggestions and help us, and we've had a great working relationship there. But we also had a board meeting Monday in Oldham County, that, right now, we all understand that you all or us even won't have any control. The governor's wanted to let these people out of jail when the pandemic started. That cost not only our county revenue, it cost every county in the state of Kentucky, that has a jail revenue. So, I just want to share this information with you so that we kind of, I don't want you to think, what has the jail done wrong? The jail's done nothing wrong. The jail's doing the best that they can with the opportunities that they provided for them. Again, I'll come back. The governor's wanted to release these people. That's how our revenue out. When these people come back today, they're coming back as county inmates, which costs you and I and every taxpayer that lives in this community. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know at what point it's gonna get better, for the simple fact that all of your law enforcement agencies have kind of met and had the understanding of themselves and, hey, listen, during the pandemic, unless it's something that's has to be arrestable offense, issue a citation, or do whatever they've had to do. And I appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody else does, because we were all trying to avoid the COVID-19 circumstances that we have to deal with. But as they're coming back, you know, and I'll be honest with you, warm weather's coming, people are starting to get out and stir more. They're starting to just get out and be involved more, and things going on in the community and everybody else's. But you're probably going to see more people showing up in jail. For the simple fact, these old warrants and things are going to start to surface. They're going to say, yep, you know, things are changing a little bit, and they need to go. But again, you know, I think it's been Master Thompson, Master Delton's been, and kind of understood, you know, what the possibilities are here, where it can go. So, you know, that's all we're trying to do is prepare, make you all aware of, and make it a lot easier for everybody to come down the road, so nobody's blindsided. You know, that's all we're looking at. That's all.
One, I guess, bright spot is we have recently hired another employee for the C-CHIP program, and I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, right now we've probably got 80 to 85 county inmates in jail, about 60 who are on home incarceration, and hopefully with the additional hire, we can maybe flip that to 60-some in jail and 80-some on home incarceration, which, you know, everyone we can move from the jail to home incarceration, I think Tony says saves about $20 a day per inmate. So that's something we may be able to continue to make some strides with.
Tony's done a marvelous job, and I thank you for all his help. They've been great. County attorney, he's been great with us. You know, we've had some health issues that showed up. He's been great in kind of helping us move on some of those. Give credit. It takes, as everybody says, it takes a village. So, you know, everybody working together, it helps.
I'd add to that and offer to work with Tony and the county attorney, in expanding that home incarceration program. The governor may have bankrupted this county of that jail over there with the action he took, because I mean, we're looking at, when you add the numbers together, the home incarceration and the county inmates, they're almost twice what they normally are, because of turning loose all the state inmates and them coming back in as county inmates. So it's, to be sure, it's increased by 50% and more than 50%.
Give credit where credit's due. William and Tony have helped us immensely. You know, they arrested somebody for failure to transfer a title for a lawyer, and he was dialysis patient. So they're sitting in the car, they paid for his dialysis, and William was kind enough to say, yeah, they can do it well. And Tony's helped us. He's got one that's trying to rehabilitate him so he can go to jail and have some surgery. And so both of them have just been critical. Greg and I talked about, we need to pull Tony into the jail budgeting process. How many more do we have?
I think that's a good point you make, Ernie. You mentioned that the other day when we were talking, and you know, I don't believe I'd ever heard of anyone being arrested for failure to transfer a title. But when we're paying, you know, $45 a day to house somebody in a jail on a charge like failure to record a title, I mean, or to transfer a title, I mean, that's just a big money loser for the county. So, you know, it's perfectly reasonable, and I'm glad the county attorney took the action that he did.
Just on the off chance that were to come up again sometime, of course, there's a lot that plays into that. The criminal history of the individual could require that be done, and so if you were to hear it be another way, and I certainly appreciate Ernie's comments and Judge Dole's both, it could be that in some cases we just don't have much choice. I think we can say collaboratively that basically we have everybody that we can put on a bracelet, not sitting in jail, but there's a sufficient number of people in this community that we just can't turn loose on our neighbors.
Sure.
So I appreciate the work that you guys do.
Let's keep those guys in, and the ones that aren't violent, let's find them.
Any further discussion of the jail budget?
There's nothing more. I want to thank you guys for the time and allowing me to bring this
Okay, we'll crunch the numbers and we'll try to come up with official proposal for the next meeting. We'll move on to number 9, consider approval of the transfers. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Any discussion?
Just one question for Alicia. Alicia, on that, I guess we received some grant money for that 34,000 and we're transferring it into that account?
That is our required, like 25% of portion for the compost grant.
Okay.
That we have not transferred over previously.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 10, consider approval of the bills list.
Motion approved.
It's been a motion. Motion and seconded by Magistrate Graham. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries as well. We have a note in your minutes, an indigent burial, Clifford Willard, date of death 2/19/21. Also, Jackie Heisel, date of death 2/6/2021. Item number 13, Clark County Sheriff Burl Purdue, Sheriff Fee Account Final Settlement for calendar year 2020. Do you have anything you want to say about it, or does anybody have questions for Burl? Okay, you've got those for your minutes. Item number 14, note in your minutes, Clark County Clerk Michelle Turner, Fee Account Final Settlement, calendar year 2020. Michelle informs me that she will email us that final settlement information. They've had a computer glitch today that prevented us from getting the actual tally.
I will say you all will be happy though. Last year we turned in $105,000, but I want to remind everyone that I pay my own health insurance, retirement and all that. And it looks like this year, through a pandemic, which we never closed, we have been open the whole time and it has worked my staff to death. We're looking at around $230,000.
It's great news, Michelle.
Actually, a little bit better than that. That's just, I'm rounding off, so.
Awesome.
Good
I'm
deal.
very proud of my staff.
Good job.
That is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I said, I appreciate you all being open like that.
It was not easy,
For other people.
but yes, but I appreciate that. Thanks, Joe.
Item number 15, consider approval of an order to hire Nathan Gent as a full-time heavy equipment operator at the Clark County Road Department. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 16, consider approval of the second reading of an ordinance to enact and adopt the Clark County Code of Ordinances. I would request a motion to continue the appropriate, for this being a second reading for an ordinance. They've told us they need at least another 30 days. So it might be best to go out around 45 days. If I could get a motion to continue for 45 days, whatever meeting you want to name that.
I'll get the date and I'll make that motion there. You want to say the second meeting in April, which will be the 22nd? I'll make a motion that we postpone or continue, County Attorney.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made to continue this matter until the April 22nd meeting. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 17, discussion and approval of March health insurance transfer. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions for Michelle? I did it again. For Alicia?
I'm gonna take your job.
Is there a reason for me to be
No,
here?
I'm not.
Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 18, discussion and approval to pay Palmer Engineering for preliminary engineering service proposal. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. I will just give some background information. This goes back to our discussions almost since we came in office regarding sewer lines and US 60, and of course, talked about the ability to develop along US 60 and so forth. And what we've really kind of nailed it down to, thanks to Magistrate Davis, is our true area of need, and also our true area where we think we can get the most grant funding and funding from outside sources, is to extend the sewer line along Rockwell Road. And Magistrate Davis or Magistrate Constantopoulos, if I mess something up, feel free to correct me. Along Rockwell Road up to where one of the current waste removal stations is, and then extended on upwards to the Yorktown trailer park. And I think that Magistrate Davis has been out there to view that. It's a potential disaster, if nothing else, waiting to happen. And we think that it needs to be replaced, and we think the state would be willing to fund that. And that would be just a clean line up Rockwell Road, then kind of diverting up towards Yorktown. And obviously there's a bore going under the interstate. There's a potential to go up US 60 and private development and all that. And if anybody wants to come in with a few $1 million and invest and pay for that, they can. But I think we've decided that the county's true responsibility is to serve those people who have the failing pump station. So go ahead, Magistrate.
I was just going to add to that. So Yorktown, in this phase that Judge is referencing, there are two package plants. One is in my district, which is Yorktown. I think the other one is Tree Haven, Judge. And I think that one may be operated by Kentucky American at this time. Both are very old. I know Yorktown's was put in the 1970s. So our understanding now is that Division of Water for some time has been encouraging the retirement of these old package plants. I don't even know if new ones are being built at all. And I know they certainly want and encourage those old plants to be decommissioned. I've been out, spent some time out at Yorktown meeting with their HOA president, Jerry Edwards, and looked at their package plant, and it's in pretty bad shape. It does not operate as it should. It is in operation. I know they're very concerned at some point it's going to fail. It's a very real possibility. If it does, we've got 190 property owners out there, probably between 700 and 800 people who no longer have sanitary sewer access. And when we started talking about this, I started thinking more and more about Yorktown, and I talked to Judge quite a bit about it. We discussed it with the folks from Kentucky American and also with Palmer Engineering. And I felt like, we couldn't, in good faith, go forward with this project unless we gave those people some ray of hope. I think that hope is there because there is a considerable amount of funding, including, I think, what I'd call either grants or forgivable loans based on income. And I think where we're talking about with Yorktown, then potentially Tree Haven, and then some other areas, we have a very good shot at qualifying based on the income levels for that funding. So that would be money in the best case scenario that wouldn't have to be paid back. There are also some options for some very low interest loans. I mean, everybody's aware interest rates are at historic lows. We see those mortgage commercials about every day, 20 times a day. But I also talked with the gentleman who's over rural aid at USDA in Lexington. And, there's definitely some rural development aid money that could also potentially be there for us. Also, either low interest loans or forgivable loans if you meet the income criteria. So I think there's a lot of really good possibilities for us out on Rockwell Road, and to kill about 2 or 3 birds with one stone, but the most important being retirement of those old package plants, particularly the one at Yorktown, which is the most concerning to me, because I think they've got a lagoon that is very close to the creek that runs back there behind Yorktown. It is a real risk, and I'm hopeful that we'll get this underway and maybe get it solved before anything bad happens. So, as I said, that's the impetus that has been driving this the last few months, and obviously we need to approve Palmer's involvement from an engineering standpoint, because that obviously, we're going to have to make applications for funding, and we may of course we've been working with Bluegrass Ad, but nothing's set in stone. But we may at some point need to create a sanitary sewer district to accommodate developing this project, building it out, funding it, getting the funding. So it's I think a very important to West Clark County from a sanitation standpoint, from an environmental standpoint. Might there be some development potential down the road for somebody? There could be. I mean, it's definitely going to enhance infrastructure in Western Clark County. So, but I appreciate, Judge, you putting it on the agenda and your work on this as well. So, but that's where we are.
Judge, if I can add, something that I encourage every magistrate, yourself, and anybody else with any interest in this project or against. Look back at, read about the package plant in Scott County, South Scott County, between Fayette County and Scott County, and those two counties were at odds over it at one time. From 1 year ago to 5 years ago, there was a failing and failed package plant that was leaking human waste into the creek, and was a real issue. And that's not what can happen here, it's what will happen. It may be a year, it may be 10 years, but it's going to happen to these plants as well. They all fail. It's what they do after a matter of time. There's a lot to be read on what happened with that facility over there, and they did get some significant funding to correct that issue. They haven't corrected now, but
And is Tree Haven, is that in your district, Greg?
Haven is in my district, yes.
Go ahead.
Judge, one thing I'd like to add to that, just for the court's awareness, originally, I think a few months ago, we had approved a initial proposal from Palmer Engineering, and this is not on top of that. It's just Magistrate Davis, worked hard, and with his input, kind of the scope changed, so that changed the actual design and the plans of this, so that would incorporate those failing package plants. So that's what this new amount is, so it's not in addition. I just wanted to make sure that the court was aware of it, but I appreciate the hard work that Magistrate Davis has put into it, and Judge, and, hopefully we can get some.
Magistrate Constantopoulos has been a part. I will say this, and then, it doesn't really get a lot of headlines, but these two magistrates have probably put in 20 hours in meetings in between going to WMU, meeting with them, several meetings with Kentucky American, meetings with the city across the street. I mean, we've really been working on this for over the past few months. So they've put in a lot of time, and nobody really acknowledges that because they don't toot their own horn. So I guess I'll just toot it for them here. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. That motion carries. Item number 19, consider approval of an order to surplus and transfer 2005 International 4300 truck relating to the Clark County Road Department. Do I have a motion first off? Or actually, let me ask a question. County Attorney Elkins, this is the one I sent you the question about, and I read your response. I just want to, I'm not sure, Road Supervisor Curtis, who is here, and he may be able to help me if I misinterpret something. We were going to take the insurance proceeds and transfer the title to CAECO. CAECO has offered to allow us to keep the vehicle for parts at a price of $500 as a salvage title. So do we not need to do this order today because of that, or do we need to alter this order?
If you're not transferring the vehicle out of the county's name to anyone, and you're also not surplusing it, and what I hear you say is you're doing neither of those two, that you're gonna keep the vehicle, then I don't think you need an order at all.
Okay. Then I will just suggest we remove this from the agenda. Yes.
We're actually gonna surplus it, so, I mean, we're just one step ahead when we sell it.
We'll just do this later.
Okay.
Be the, correct, William?
Well, my thinking on that would be, if you're gonna do it, you can do it today, but surplusing is only done for the purpose of getting it out of your hands. So I'm either gonna take it to
I
scrap
understand
yard,
now.
sell it to public sale, or transfer the title.
But you're gonna do that after you part it, I assume, correct?
Yeah, we probably surplus it.
Here's what it sounds, I'm sorry, Greg, here's what it sounds like is going on to me. It sounds like we need to surplus it, to get the proceeds from CAECO. In other words, enact this order if possible, and then they'll wind up letting us keep it in exchange for $500 discount. That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
Wait, can I butt in on that one?
Sure.
Because that's my job right there. You need to salvage it. If the insurance company told you to salvage it to get the money, you have to salvage it.
Right.
So
So
that's
they
your
need to
you have to
enact
do
that
that before you can surplus it.
Okay.
So we do need to salvage it for insurance purposes.
Judge, would it be in order just to offer up a motion to salvage this vehicle, and then once we salvage, then we can come back with the,
I think under the discussion, on the facts discussed here today, that the order would just be appropriate the way it is.
Okay.
We're surplusing it to CAECO. They'll get title to it. They can give it back to us as a salvage title because they're giving us more than 75% of the value of the vehicle under state law. So you can no longer issue a good title anymore. It'll come back into our hands and for parts.
Okay, so we are gonna salvage it to CAECO, and they're gonna give it back for $500. That's what I didn't understand. Okay. All right.
so make a motion to approve.
Correct.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 20, consider approval of an order to approve purchase of a 2017 Vermeer wood chipper for the Clark County Road Department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 21, first reading of a zoning ordinance to change the classification of 26 acres of land from agricultural to single-family residential at the rear of 2800 Colby Road.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Item number 22, discussion of small business COVID relief. So you should have received in your packet what was basically an effort to copy, for lack of a better phrase, the city's small business COVID relief program. I'm certain that there's still a lot of questions that you all have in your mind. This is something that myself and Magistrate Thompson and Magistrate Blanton discussed a few weeks ago. From that discussion, I think this somewhat represents what they were looking to put together. So Magistrate Thompson is here, and I'm here. If you've got questions, we'll try to answer them.
I've got just a couple questions. Approximately how many businesses outside the city limits would potentially qualify for this grant? Do we have any idea?
We don't know. I think Magistrate Thompson has some information on how many the city had, but I don't know for sure how many the county would have.
I only read it in the paper and I don't remember what the number
Okay.
54 comes to mind, but don't know, you know where? You wrote it.
On the spot, Fred.
I can't remember, I just read it about for applicants. I would imagine we would have much less. I think that's what you and myself and Patrick went and discussed.
We discussed setting a ceiling of $20,000. First come, first serve.
I'm glad you said that, because that leads me to my next question. So if we have 25 applications, I mean, it's just based on first come, first serve. I mean, how do we pick between, winners and losers, on who gets the grants and who doesn't get the grants? I'd hate to have businesses cut out.
I think that you would just have to go with whatever objective criteria is included in the packet here. And if somebody's date stamped the 19th, they get preference to somebody date stamped the 20th. That's the only fair way I would see, really, assuming that they meet all of the qualifications.
And then one last question is here, I read on number 3, it talks about all payroll taxes being reported and so forth to the county. Would a business qualify if they have paid zero in payroll tax to the county and or zero net profits tax to the county?
I think under the way this is written, they would if they hadn't paid any. But obviously, that's up to the purview of the court if the court wanted to change that. It's not like any of this is written on a stone tablet.
What was the reason, judging, and maybe this is how the city handled it, I don't know. What was the reason for excluding landlords?
This was just basically copying what the city had. So that would be their reasoning more so than ours. Like I said, we could change anything in here you wanted.
This was actually sent to us by the Chamber of Commerce, correct?
I think this actual one was sent by the city because we got their Word document so we could tinker with it.
Well, in light of the recent conversation we had, I guess I would want to know, there's a few things I need to know. How many businesses qualify, or what's the maximum risk for the county? And I'm gonna set a cap, I think that answers that. I don't know how many businesses might qualify. Who's gonna scrutinize the applications? Who's gonna say, will you qualify, you don't? Somebody's gotta be that referee that does that. That's gonna be a pretty tall task, I would think, so.
I will say that there is a little bit of cost benefit to be taken into account as to, we've already got a stressed finance department. We know that, and this would add to their burden. But I think they are the appropriate ones to review that documentation.
Yeah, also, where would the funds come from to pay it? If we cap it at 20,000 or 25,000, I think that's a question that we're gonna have to answer as well. And
To me, and I know we've been beating this dead horse over a matter of months, and we can continue to beat it. I would suggest the community fund. I'm sure if Magistrate Blanton was here, he would suggest something else. So y'all know that.
yeah, I just, my thinking on this is, we're gonna have to come up with a significant amount of cash, for other departments that we must keep running. I don't know how, frivolous isn't the right word, but I don't know how. I think we probably should think hard about this and be careful before we start diving off into areas that probably the county maybe shouldn't even be in. I don't know, but.
Well, that's why I suggest the community fund. When I think about it, this just kind of goes back to ideology, which I think is where a lot of us may have just bottom line difference of opinions. In general, I'm not a huge fan of using tax dollars for the benefit of private individuals. I would like to avoid doing that. Now, the community fund is not tax dollars. That's why I think we could use the community fund to do it. If you're asking me, should we take it out of the general fund? No, I'd probably vote against it if it was out of the general fund. Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that also, but I do know that sometimes, whether, again, you go back to philosophical differences, but sometimes we keep us from having to use tax dollars.
That's true.
So,
I know where you're coming from there too.
I think it's just, that's my thoughts on it, for my comment.
But really, truly, the reason this is a discussion item is because obviously if we're going to move forward with it, it's going to take, you know, a lot of additional work. And so I would like to use this as an opportunity to use it as a feel the pulse of the court type situation, because I don't want to waste a lot of our time working on something if we're not going to be able to come to an agreement on it.
Well, I think if we do move forward with it, and again, that's a big if, sounds like there's a lot of doubt on the court. But, you know, I brought up landlords a moment ago, and, you know, that's, in my opinion, that group of business people has been one of the most burdened over the last year by these shutdowns.
Certainly they have.
First, you had the court system effectively shut down for weeks and weeks last year. Then, you know, you had this moratorium on evictions, where you couldn't evict tenants that hadn't paid, despite the fact they were bumping up federal unemployment by whatever it was, $600 a week, plus the stimulus checks, plus bumping up EBT, plus everything else. But for some reason, landlords were expected to just eat it. And, you know, I can tell you, I've heard a lot of horror stories from property owners over the last 12 months, and we're, I think, right at the 12-month mark since COVID started, the lockdowns, the shutdowns, the eviction moratoriums. And so I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least consider including some landlord assistance, because they haven't gotten any assistance from anybody else. You know, there's been, I'm told, rent relief. I don't know how that's worked out as far as.
Let me tell you how the rent relief works. I know how the rent relief works. If there's been two separate funds, a new one just came out. The first one, you had to have the tenant fill out paperwork and sign off on it, and basically say, because of COVID, I'm unable to pay my rent. Then the landlord had to agree to a certain amount of time, you know, not collecting, not doing an eviction, even though evictions weren't allowed anyway. But where that really presents a problem is if you have a problem tenant, or when the funds ran out, or if you have somebody who didn't want to fill out the paperwork. The newest fund that they've created, the landlord can fill out the paperwork, but it still has to be signed off on by the tenant, which, you know, I don't know how many of you have ever dealt with landlords and tenants and property. It's an area of the law that I used to practice in. A lot of times landlords and tenants don't get along. And there's a lot of tenants out there who would just say, I'm not signing your paper, I'll just stay here. And so you have landlords who are, you know, taking, you know, on one particular unit, maybe you're taking an $800 hit every single month. You can't evict somebody. They won't sign the relief funds, and at the end of the year, you've lost $10,000. So, yeah, you're certainly right. Landlords have been pummeled.
I think the recent
throughout
number I
COVID.
saw was in Clark County. I think there were somewhere in the neighborhoods of like $247,000 in unpaid rent.
And that would probably just be through the landlord association, which does not encompass all the landlords.
That's right.
Yeah. So the actual number, that's a fraction of the actual number. Anyway, soapbox time, huh?
Just a point to ponder.
Well, one final point, Judge, and then one final comment. I think that, you know, if the court does proceed with this, I think if the business has qualified to receive the PPP program, I think that they should be not available for this program since they've already received federal funding from that. That's just my 2 cents worth if it does move forward. And the second thing, that this is what really frustrating about local government, is that decisions are made through the state, and, you know, we're faced with all the repercussions from those decisions. I mean, if you look at the state pension, you know, previous administrations all the way back, they mismanaged that money, and our costs continually get passed on to the local government. And it's the same thing here. You know, we've got an individual making decisions, and it's destroyed a lot of businesses, and they're suffering. I understand that they're struggling. I mean, my business has been affected, and here we go again. It's coming back down to the local government to try to help these businesses. And that's just one thing that just keeps frustrating me. The longer I'm in local government is they make the decisions, but yet we're forced to have to try to clean up the mess.
Yeah, certainly there is an element to, the federal government and the state government have been involved with all these shutdowns. We haven't issued a single order shutting down anything. Matter of fact, the only thing we did pass was a resolution saying, please open back up. But, we were largely ignored on that. So we need to either decide whether to take up for the burden that we didn't cause or not, I suppose.
Seems like, and I don't know, maybe I could probably go either way, but it just seems like it's just a drop in a bucket. And I don't know if it's really gonna be as effective.
Okay, any further comments?
Yeah, to finish up for my comments and say it seems like a good idea. I'd give that. I mean, I feel good. It's something you want to do. But to Joe's point, Mr. Graham's point, it does seem like I just don't know how beneficial this would be and to who. I'm sure I'll hear comments about that. But I think we ought to think about it before we spend tax dollars on this. Might as well. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion of that, I think we can move on to magistrate comments. Magistrate Graham?
Yes, I was, like I said, I was appreciative that the county clerk's office has been open, very nice. There's other offices that aren't open and very burdensome, and I'm not sure I understand why they're not. And I'm not talking about any county offices, but just local things. I hate to pick on people, but I wish they'd get it going here. That's all I have to say.
Magistrate Thompson?
Just want to show my appreciation to the road department, Judge. They've had a rough month. It's tough to go from one event directly into the other, but that's how Kentucky does it for some reason. So I show some appreciation there. They worked hard, and I know there's going to be a lot of successes there. And thank Magistrate Constable for bringing the relief to the table for my district. Not quite as bad as yours, but in the same boat. So glad we were able to do that today.
Magistrate Constantopoulos?
Yeah, Judge, in regards to the flood response, first I want to, appreciate you for, declaring the local state of emergency in regards to that and being heavily involved down there. And I want to thank the EMA Director, Fire Chief, for his hard work down there. I want to thank Alan Curtis, the road supervisor, the amount of time and organization. I attended a meeting down there with all three of these gentlemen in regards to how they were going to address it. And I mean, Alan and them had it planned to the T on how this was going to work. The people down there in the district were very appreciative, and it took a little bit of the burden off of them. And I can't thank you all enough for the hard work and the amount of time that you all have spent down there. I've been down there multiple times, and I've seen both these guys spending hours in their employees, and we're really fortunate to have them in this county, and I can't thank you all enough. And I also want to just thank the constables. It was brought up in that meeting that they were having a lot of unnecessary traffic down there in regards to rubbernecking, trying to see it, and it was causing a lot of traffic jams during that meeting. And we brought up, hopefully we can get those constables down there, made a phone call, and every day they've had it worked out a shift blocking traffic to only so the cleanup can begin without those rubberneckers. And it's amazing the amount of traffic over the weekend and during the week that has been coming down there that has been turned away. So that's made a tremendous benefit to those citizens, and they've been very appreciative of that. So I can't thank them enough for that. And then finally, I just want to thank all the churches that have volunteered to help, everybody that's brought meals down to the people of the district, and just the numerous volunteers that have been down there helping clean up. I can't thank you enough, and I know the citizens down there really appreciate it. And so I just want to say that the county, from the county's aspect of it, they did a great job, and I can't be more proud of everybody that's put in the hard work.
Thank you. Master Davis?
Thank you, Judge. Well, I'll echo all that, all those comments about the road department and other departments too, fire department, and how they all work together, the citizens work together. We had some of our elected officials go down this week and help out. I know County Attorney Elkins was down there. A lot of times Daniel was as well. What I want to speak to, Judge, is a little bit more on policy, and something you and I have talked a lot about, and I know how you feel because I've seen some of your comments at these virtual conferences. I've made comments about it too, and it's going to be on the subject of jail funding. And I've made the comment a number of times in these virtual seminars that the Magistrate Associations had, CAICO's put on, that, the jail is, as we all know, is a responsibility of the county, and I don't have any problem with that. But I think the growing consensus among county officials is that cities and municipal governments in Kentucky get a lot of benefit from that and have to pay very little or nothing for it out of their city budgets. And one of the things that almost has unanimous support in these conferences, Judge, is going to the legislature and saying you need to give jails the ability to bill municipal governments for housing their prisoners. Because a lot of these counties with large cities and towns, it may be where you've got 70 or 80 quote-unquote county inmates, but 80 or 90% of them have been run in and out of there by the city police departments. But who's paying for that? It isn't that city government. It's not coming out of that city budget. It's coming from the county taxpayers. We had an EMS meeting just about a week and a half ago, and Judge brought up that point, to our city officials that are on that committee with us. Of course, that's a joint interlocal. We share that budget. But I know this is a short legislative session. I think it's about over, isn't it, Judge? Maybe even this week. So,
Yeah.
and I know there was one House bill that would allow, I think my understanding of it, allow county to get more of that payroll tax. So you got these cities, eating up, annexing more and more property. They eat up, they swallow up the lion's share of the payroll taxes. And they've certainly taken a hit this year, I know, with COVID and what have you. Everybody has. But I think there has got to be a solution. And what I would encourage all the members of this court, if they're comfortable doing it, we're members of the Magistrate Association, judges member of the Kentucky Judges Association. I think we need to push CAICO and their lobbying effort. And I would ask Jailer Doyle to mention that to the Jailers Association in their lobbying effort. And we all need to be united, all of our associations, all of our lobbying effort, in pushing for a more equal cost sharing, revenue sharing, whatever the case may be. Because I think this idea of throwing this all, again, it's talk about these unfunded mandates. They throw these jails on the counties, and that's fine. If that's the way it needs to be, that I have no problem with that. But there ought to be some fairness on revenue sharing or billing, or straight up billing municipal governments for the people, the inmates, that their police officers are bringing in and out of these jails. I mean, we have jails for a reason. People have to go to jail. I understand that, particularly violent offenders, and I appreciate what Mr. Salmon said. I mean, we have those jails for a reason. It's a matter of public safety. But it does get down to fairness on money. So I hope that in the months to come, the legislature will have these interim committee meetings, I think usually in the summer, early fall. State and local government committees of the House and Senate will be meeting. And I think we really need to push this issue, because when I go to these conferences and I see the comments in the comment box, it's usually a Zoom meeting, it's almost, when you mention jails and the unfairness, it is almost unanimous that municipal governments need to be kicking in something more. I mean, even if it's a formula where they're only paying a fraction of what state pays for state inmates. At this point, I would take it. I think we all would. So I just would ask all of us in the months to come, there's probably not going to be anything done this session, but the long session starts in January. That's a short 10 months from now. And there needs to be a real push, united front. Judge, I would ask you to keep pushing the Judges Association and CACO for that matter too. Because I know, and I'm not trying to pit counties against cities, but I'm sure Kentucky League of Cities will fight that like fighting a running sawmill to keep that from happening. But that's why we have debate. That's why we have these associations. And I would hope that we'd get all these associations on the same footing, on the same page, and we ask for some more fairness with this funding. I know we're not going to get more money from the state, but what the legislature needs to let us do is have some freedom to work out an arrangement with cities and municipal governments on billing. So I would just add that, and I appreciate Judge Jailer Doyle and Mr. Salmons being here, and I'd ask that they give that some consideration. And Jailer, I know you're involved with your Jailer Association, and I'd hope that board would take that up, and that they would know that there is a real move among fiscal court members across the state to get this. So it's not going to just be out jailers beating that drum. I think many of us will too. I mean, we're trying to get our association get them past the idea of raising the fuel tax. That's not going to happen. They want to raise the fuel tax every year for 25, 30 years. That's dead. It's not going to die. But this is something that we all are in agreement on, in my opinion, or at least the ones that have vocalized in these meetings. So I just would add that, Judge. I appreciate the job everybody's doing. It's been a difficult budget year, so.
Thank you. Magistrate Elkins?
Just to add to everything that's been said so far, I appreciate the hard work of the county, people in this room that helped the victims of the flood. Been through a trying time Clark County had with an ice storm and a snowstorm and a flood. Most everybody, except maybe one or two, put politics aside, rolled their sleeves up, and done the work that needs to be done. It's really good to see. It makes you feel good to see that. To add to what Magistrate Davis said about the jails and the city paying at least a share of it, or giving the county the ability to negotiate something with the city. Probably the law was written, I don't know, that the county going to fund the jail by themselves when counties kept one inmate like Otis, and he piled up in the jail. It seemed like a very small burden. He came and locked himself up when he wanted to, but that's not the case anymore. Now that we have a drug epidemic, those jails are full. They're busting at the seams, not just ours, but the state. So county can't keep shouldering that burden like we did in the 50s and the 40s when there were 5 people from Clark County in jail, or 10. There's 100 or 150 now. So something does have to be done. Ernie and I talked this morning even, and he had the thought that maybe we push through some legislation if we can at the state level that says if an inmate is released due to COVID or was released, it has to be retroactive due to COVID, and they reoffend and come back in jail within a 12-month period. The state picks up and pays back to us that reimbursement that was lost because they were released due to COVID, when we all know they shouldn't have been. There's no more safe out on the street than they were in the jail when you get COVID. That was a budget issue, all that was. I think there's a lot of things we need to look at to help with the funding of these jails, but to be sure, we have to start looking now. Magistrate Davis is right. When you see the chat boxes in these meetings at the Judges Association or Magistrates Association, it is almost completely about the jails and how to pay for them. Stay quiet. So, I think there's some traction. But don't quit now. Push harder. Now that there is some traction, it's time to push harder. And I encourage you guys to keep doing what you've done, because I see you at the chat boxes every time, along with Magistrate Davis, every time, talking about the jails and the funding of the jails. So keep that up. I think we're being heard. I have nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Magistrate Elkins. A few notes I have. You all may have seen Congress has been working on some more COVID relief funding. We're in contact with our representatives on a statewide level to do what we can to make sure that we secure any of that. Some, I feel, exciting news about broadband that I'll have more details on in upcoming weeks. We're making some real progress with rural broadband, and I expect us to, my goal is to get at least 2,000 houses in rural Clark County that don't have broadband with broadband within the next 6 years. So I'm willing to state that publicly right now, and I think we can do it. I want to thank the constables for the control that they've done down at Amster Grove. As several people have mentioned, a lot of us have been down there. I know that County Attorney Elkin's been down there the last couple of days. Magistrate Constantopoulos been down there several times. Of course, it's almost a full-time job for Steve and Alan, and it's like a little one lane road. I mean, I parked on the side of the road and I was blocking traffic on the way out, and had to run up and move my car. So we can't have people coming down there and looky-looing. So I want to thank the constables for what they've done. I want people to continue to be sensitive. If you do happen to go down, not to take pictures of people's property and just make things look bad, because if you think about it being the worst day of your life, you don't want to see that over and over on Facebook. You know what I mean? So that's something that I'm sensitive to, and I think we've done a good job with that, and I think the constables have done a good job preventing that as well. In regards to national funding, we've been in contact with the federal delegation. I spoke with Senator Paul last week, and I've spoken with Andy Barr several times. They have forwarded a letter and are urging the governor, once we get all the information in, to request disaster declaration from the man in the White House right now. And I think, according to EMA Director Asbury, we have to reach a 40% threshold of major damage. Am I right on that?
That's in a business, sir. Residential, it takes into a wide range.
Okay. So business is 40% and residential that's what they're going to have to make their determination on, right? Okay. So we're submitting everything that we can, and Steve's on top of that, and we're urging everyone we can possibly urge to get as much funding as possible. And of course, as Magistrate Constantopoulos brought up today, we're going to do what we can here on a local level. In regards to the jail stuff, it occurs to me that it's almost like probably Jailer Doyle and Ernie there, they may feel like I'm kind of stingy with the way that I talk in these budget meetings, but believe me, I'm doing what I can to go to bat for you with KCO. I'm doing what I can with the Judges Association, and I would say, if you asked anybody impartial, and I'll give Adair County out in western Kentucky some credit, it's pretty much Clark County and Adair County who are taking the lead on pressuring the associations to get some funding specifically from municipalities to help with the burden that jails have. And Magistrate Davis is right. We had a revenue sharing EMS meeting the other day, and just a Winchester Clark County example. There was a discussion about the equity of how COVID was running up the cost of EMS service, and the discussion was, well, this is related to COVID. The county ought to kick in more money because we're having to spend more. And the counterpoint was, well, we're having to spend a heck of a lot more money on the jails because of COVID. Is there not equity where you would help us with that? So it's something we continue to bang a drum on, and we're going to do what we can to get our legislators involved in these associations, and may not be able to do it this time, but hopefully we'll have something next legislative session, at least for them to discuss. But help us out if you can with that, and we'll help you. All right, that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Adjourned at 10:42.
Thank you.
Thanks, William. Sure. How long did you work down there yesterday?
Oh, just till physical therapy at 3.
Mike, can you head